While many of these stories are not my own, I've acquired them from over a period of time, from many people I've talked to many people I know. Call me a wannabe amateur cryptozoology researcher, or something of that nature. But I just enjoy collecting stories of things that are not supposed to exist. The topic in question is the sighting and existence of the Goatman. Is this a folklore tale, or is this more true than ever before? Well, around the Blue Hill Mountain area, settled in northeast Georgia, there's far more encounters and sightings of this particular cryptid than ever before. I've had many eyewitnesses come forward with their own harrowing tales of seeing this supposed beast walking around, stalking their houses, killing pets and family members, and far, far worse, by terrorizing entire groups of communities. The first story I wanted to share with you was by an older gentleman who lived by himself against the Appalachian Mountains, kind of more tucked into the woods, not entirely a loner. But his wife had passed many years prior, and all of his children grown up and moved far away. He didn't have much, but he was by himself. This man was not a man of ghosts, supernatural, God, or angels, but he could not deny the existence of what he calls the Goatman, because he had seen it with his own two eyes on multiple occasions. He described it as exactly what it sounds like: a creature looking to be half human, half goat, a perfect hybrid of the two, but not in the way that Greek mythology depicts them, with a flute in the mouth and being very gentle, docile beings. These things, from what he told me, were very violent and attempted to take his life on several different occasions. He told me, and his words were, that he believes this thing targeted him because he was an easy target, being elderly, all alone, as if it made him more fragile and weak and easier to overcome. But they never did. He kept an old rifle, passed down from his old grandfather, that he had claimed to me saved his life on more than just one occasion. These things, for whatever he also told me, have a fear of fire. He would light torches around his house, as well as looked into handcrafting some sort of handmade flamethrower-like device, not like the ones you see in movies, but some way to project flame directly out forward without being too dangerous. However, he never did achieve such a thing. Along with the fear of fire, they also appear to only be nocturnal, and that they've only ever tried to break into his house during dusk or nighttime. He's never seen them during the day, only when the light is low enough, but describes them with the words demonic, horrific, and vicious. And this same old man, and for the sake of his identity, I'll keep his name anonymous, but we'll call him Henry, just so you can understand who I'm referring to, claims that he had been living in the house he is for well over 30 years, but has only recently started to see them in the past 10, which he believes is a cycle. They only come around every so few years, for a short amount of time. And that's what he believes. Judging from other encounters and eyewitness stories, I don't exactly myself personally believe that. It could just be that they travel through specific areas, through specific years and seasons, but I don't know. I'm trying to gather as much information on Goatman as I possibly can. It's a rather new cryptid for me, so I'm still learning as I go. But, like the skinwalkers of the Navajo region, and other cryptids that appear to be specific to different regions of the United States and the world, I've only ever heard of Goatman in the South, ranging from Texas all the way to the East Coast. So, myself, I'm wondering if this is some sort of demonic summoning ritual, or perhaps there is something more at play here than any of those things. Anything I can comprehend personally. because by the different accounts that I've read and been told, they all lead me to different directions as far as this creature's origins. Henry's encounters with these Goatmen seem to come and go, and last I spoke with him, which was just a few months back, he hadn't had any encounters with these things for at least a couple years, which is good for him. Another lady, whom we'll call Annabelle, had a family with a husband, 3 kids, and a dog, living very close to Texarkana, which is the border to Texas and Arkansas. She said that she saw one in the process of strangulating her Rottweiler until her husband shot it right in the head, but didn't even seem to hurt it. But the shot was successful in driving the creature away, whether that be in fear of getting shot again or what, I'm not sure. But you think any rifle should be enough to kill anything, especially when a bullet is aimed at the skull of any living creature. This is not the case, which is partially the reason why I'm leaning somewhere on the side of this being a supernatural entity, because there are things that just defy reality. Annabelle and her family had never seen the likes of this creature before, not until this one offshoot time where it revealed itself, not caring that it could be seen by the entire neighborhood, nearly killing her dog, but only shortly before her husband noticed and took immediate action. Since this happened, back in the summer of 2012, they have not seen it return, but after speaking with Annabelle's husband on the phone, he has told me that he still hears screams sometimes, far off in the backwoods. They're not always there, and sometimes they're more faint than other times. But he says he believes the screams are from this creature, whatever it is, since he knows just about every sound of every animal they live around, and it matches no known description of any creature he's ever run into. Another very interesting account, which I personally attribute much credibility to, this particular individual. They used to serve as an officer, and I hold their word as very truthful. They have nothing to gain out of making this up, and after speaking to said individual, they wished to remain completely anonymous, so we'll call them Daniel. Daniel told me that when he was an officer working up in the state of Maine for about 4 years, he was driving in a very rural area in Maine when this thing could be seen standing up in a field next to the road. He told me he got a full look at it, from head to toe, or what could be seen in the tall grass, and said at first he assumed it might be a person with a Halloween costume and a prop, but the more he looked at it and studied it, he realized it was far too realistic looking. And the most disturbing part is that it was indeed holding a weapon, looking somewhat like an old-style axe. He was so shocked and intrigued by this sighting, he actually slowed down his police car and took a second to really take it all in. The creature, because the direction it was facing, didn't seem to take notice to his car, but he got more than enough of a viewing than he ever could have wanted to. He told me that prior to that sighting, he had never even heard of or been made aware of the folklore legend of the Goatman, and when he saw it, he was not only terrified, but puzzled at what he could be looking at. Now, Daniel knows all too well that these creatures do exist, and not just the southern states, but all along the East Coast as well. Another bizarre yet fascinating story comes from another man in his 30s that I spoke to recently. His name is Paul. Last name I won't reveal. But in the past year or two, he was hiking in eastern Pennsylvania when he encountered a strange smell and feeling. He said, if you've ever been in a thunderstorm, there's a smell to it. You could feel the denseness and the humidity in the air. You can just feel a storm coming. That's what he told me that he perceived all around him, just from the moisture, the humidity, and the smell. Only problem was, The day he was out hiking around, it was clear skies, bright and sunny. And in March, then, he went on to say that for a brief amount of time, the air surrounding him, from feet to head, became filled with static electricity, and he felt the hair on his body and head stand up. He told me it was one of the strangest sensations he's ever had. It only lasted for maybe 45 seconds, he recalled. But afterwards, he had the sighting that would change his life and forever make him rethink entering the woods. He told me this, and I quote, "I was about 3.5 miles away from my vehicle when all of these things began to happen around me. I listened to my gut, because at this point, it was screaming I should turn back. Something was wrong. I wasn't sure what, but I know enough to always trust your gut. I began making my way back, having to climb down over this small ridge, when out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. The Goatman. The thing that I'd only ever heard about in stories, a legend that I always thought was fake. But here I was, seeing it in person, and I'll tell you this, laying eyes physically on this sort of being is the closest you'll ever get to physically seeing a demon in real life. Easily 9 to 10 feet tall. This thing was towering, and to me, resembled more of a minotaur than it did a goat man, but still had that very ugly demonic look to it. It did not have any clothes on. It did not have an axe in its hand. It seemed to be making its way across a large ridge and wasn't paying any mind to me. Had it looked over in my direction, it could have easily seen me. It's not like in that moment I had any brush or anything to hide behind. I was sticking out like a sore thumb, had this thing just turned its head. I'm glad it didn't. It continued off into the woods and was gone. It was going at a pretty good pace. It appeared to be on a mission to get to somewhere. Maybe it came through a portal. Maybe that's why I experienced the static electricity feeling. Maybe that's why I smelt the thunderstorm on a clear, bright, sunny day. After having follow-up phone calls with Paul, he informed me that he has since gone back to that same section of woods that he supposedly saw the Goatman. He hasn't seen it since, and it's not going to keep him from doing what he loves most, being out in nature. But he is very much more aware now of his surroundings, and aware of the existence of legends, or things that he thought were legend. One of the things we talked about when we were on the phone, and I'll never forget this, is when he told me, you know, if Goatman exist, what other supposed legend that we were told growing up doesn't exist, now exists? This opens the door for all realms of possibilities, including Bigfoot to Chupacabra, and even ghosts. The last eyewitness story that I'd like to share with you in this email comes from a young 19-year-old gentleman named Clay, who was out on an evening hike just this last year in 2019, when he saw, on a small segment of beach in South Carolina, what he described to me as a half-man, half-goat figure dragging, now here's the disturbing part, dragging a human body behind it. Where it was going, he wasn't sure, but he immediately didn't feel right and called 911. Police were able to go down there and inspect, but they never found anything. No footprints, which should have been impossible to not find, considering this thing was walking in sand and dragging a human body behind with it. It's eyewitness stories like these that truly disturb me when you hear just how frightened the individual was upon seeing this thing off in the distance. I have tons more stories that I can share with you, and I hope you are open to hearing them. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the stories that I've sent you thus far, and if I'm lucky, maybe you'll decide to use them. You have full permission to. Let's keep an open line of communication, as I'm sure if you do use this, your viewers will be hungry for all sorts of other cryptid sightings. I've got plenty, as I keep close tabs with many individuals with their own horrifying personal sightings. Thank you, and take care. If you or somebody you know has a story or encounter they would like to share with me or have me read on this channel, please send it to stories@whatlurksbeneath.com. The email can be found in the description below.